I love and believe in independent podcasting, but it has its problems. How about a podcast that addresses the problems independent podcasters have and seeks to solve them, particularly in building an audience, monetization, and tech? I'm Dr. Brad Miller. Let's tackle those things together. This indeed is the Independent Podcaster Problem Solvers Show, and I am Dr. Brad Miller. And I am here to address the problems that you, the independent podcaster, has, especially with acquiring and building an audience, making money podcasting, and tech. And we do that by reviewing the best books, courses, and coaching in podcasting, listening to your problems. You can always go to www.podcastindependent.com/voicemail and leave me your voicemail. Talking with the podcasting gurus and coaches who speak then to your problems and by pointing to you to the best podcasting events. Indeed, I have my own event. It's called podindy.com, PODINDY.com. At that event, Dave Jackson will unpack in a single track one-day event his book, Profit from Your Podcast, which is going to audio very soon. And we're going to talk about how you can amplify your podcasting profits with AI. Podindy.com is a live event in person and a live virtual event held November 9th, 2024, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. Eastern Time. You can come in person to Indianapolis for $57. Live virtual is only $27, and you can get the downloads for $37. And the good news, because you're listening to my voice today, you can use the coupon code INDY, I-N-D-Y, and get 15% off of all tickets. Go to podindy.com for details. Now, in the first few episodes of the Independent Podcaster Problem Solver Show, I'm going to review for you the key points of Dave Jackson's amazing book, Profit from Your Podcast, Proven Strategies to Turn Listeners into a Livelihood. Why? Because podcast consultants like me are so often asked, how do we make money podcasting? So my first tip is to get the book, Profit from Your Podcast, from Amazon, and know that the audiobook is coming soon. Who knows? Dave may even drop by here on the Podcast Independent program to lay a few golden nuggets on us on an upcoming episode of Independent Podcaster Problem Solvers. First, let me tell you in this episode who I am and why I decided to offer to you, the independent podcaster, my friend, this podcast, which is seeking to be so presumptuous as to seek to solve your podcasting problems. My name indeed is Dr. Brad Miller, and I started my first podcast in 2012. It was for my son's high school lacrosse team. He was the captain, and I had a bit of a background in radio and had some fun doing player interviews and coaches shows and, just trying to do the good dad type of thing. But I got the bug. And since then, I have published over 1,000 episodes of my own podcast, built up some great audiences, got involved with production and tech and editing, and have made enough money to make it worth my while. But this didn't happen without banging my head against monitors, battling pod fade, wasting too much time and money in this sometimes maddening addictive habit of podcasting. I think you know what I mean. Why I do it is because I know that I'm having an influence and an impact on people about matters that matter to me. I just got an email from a listener to my Cancer and Comedy podcast telling me about how important my podcast was to her and how she had downloaded the last 35 episodes and how useful and pertinent it was to her life in dealing with cancer in her life. And that's the type of thing that keeps me going. And also because it's just simply a lot of fun. But what has sustained me is when I faced my problems that I face as an independent podcaster, and I think I have found the formula to solve them. I'll tell you what it is here in just a moment. What I discovered is that my podcasting problems broke down into 3 categories, and I bet they're in your problem bucket as well. Audience. How to grow and sustain an audience for your podcast. That's number 1. Number 2 is money. How to at least break even with the expenses of podcasting, and moreover, and importantly, to provide a path for profitability to make it really worth my time. Number 3 is tech. How do I keep up with all the crazy tech stuff that's going on, all the products, the jargon, the strategies, the learning curve? And if you agree with me, then we're going to get along great here on the Independent Podcasting Show as buds. We're going to work together through these problems. And that's the formula I found out here in the independent podcaster problems. It's being buds. I'll condense it into one word. It's cooperation. Cooperation in reading books and cooperation in availing ourselves of courses and coaching on podcasting and connecting to podcasting gurus and coaches through masterminds and Q&A sessions. And that's why connecting with me, Dr. Brad Miller, here on the Independent Podcaster Problem Solver Show is so important to you, my bud, my independent podcaster buddy. This is a place where together, cooperatively, we will address and answer your podcasting problems. Let me tell you again how we're going to do this. I'm going to review and break down into bite-sized bits books and courses that I have consumed myself and that I consider to be some of the best advice that has helped me to deal with my podcasting problems and to achieve my goals. I'm talking about such greats as Cliff Ravenscraft, John Lee Dumas, Jeff Brown, David Hooper, Ray Edwards, and Dave Jackson. And indeed, as I mentioned, the upcoming next several episodes of the Independent Podcaster Problem Solvers will be a review of Dave Jackson's great book, Profit from Your Podcast. Number 2, we want to hear your problems. We want to hear directly from you. And if you have solutions for problems as well, we have a voicemail that we use, and your voicemail may very well be used on an upcoming episode. Just go to podcastindependent.com/voicemail right now. Leave me a message and answer to this question. What money-making methods have you tried and failed at in podcasting? Likewise, if you have a solution, what ways have you succeeded in making money podcasting? Go to podcastindependent.com voicemail. Leave me that message right now. The third thing we want to do is to point you towards the best podcasting events and training to get you personally connected and cooperating with other like-minded problem-solving podcasters. And I'd just like to tell you again about my event. It's coming up November 9th, 2024. It's called podindy.com. And the single focus topic is how to profit from your podcast amplified by AI. Our keynote speaker is Dave Jackson, who wrote the book, Profit from Your Podcast. The audiobook is upcoming soon. Proven Strategies to Turn Listeners into a Livelihood. It's live and in person and virtual, November 9th, 2024, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. Eastern Time. Tickets are $57 if you come to Indianapolis. It's $27 if it's virtual. And you can download everything for $37. And the good news, you use the discount code INDY, I-N-D-Y, and knock 15% off that price. Just go to podindy.com for details. Okay, here in this first episode of Independent Podcaster Problem Solvers, let's just review. My name is Dr. Brad Miller, and I'm hosting this new show, Independent Podcaster Problem Solvers, to address and answer problems you have in audience building, monetization, and tech. And the formula, I believe, lies in cooperation. Cooperation which I will provide to you in 3 ways: reviewing books and resources. Number 2, fielding voicemails and solutions. And 3, pointing you towards powerful collaborative events like podindy.com. All that's left to do now, my friend, my bud, is for you to cooperate with me. So please do these things. Please listen and follow the Independent Podcaster Problem Solvers Show by going to podcastindependent.com/follow. Secondarily, call the voicemail at podcastindependent.com. Voicemail, leave me a message. And the third thing then, of course, is to check out podindy.com. So I want to invite you now to get ready for the very next episode of the Independent Podcaster Problem Solvers Show, where I will begin the process of reviewing what Dave Jackson says the most important thing that podcast success boils down to. You don't want to miss that episode. You know what? We're going to have a lot of fun together, my friend. So let's get to it. Until next time, problem solvers, I'm Dr. Brad Miller. Talk to you soon.